Welcome to the Crossing the Pond podcast, hosted by me, Gary Adair, where each week our guests will recount their own experiences of resilience and transformation, whether it's moving to a new country, tackling health challenges, changing careers, or breaking through personal barriers. Our guest today is Kevin Grogan, a former professional football player whose promising career was cut short by injury at just 21 years old. After relocating to the US from Dublin, Kevin reinvented himself, transitioning from coaching roles to the sports consulting sector. In this conversation, Kevin opens up about the highs and lows of his early career, sharing the lessons he's learned from overcoming adversity. He also talks about what the US has provided him, both professionally and personally, and how this new chapter has shaped his life on and off the field. All right, well, listen, mate, thanks very much for coming on and helping me out today. It's been a long time coming. Not saying you're ducking me, but it's just been one of those things, hasn't it? Chips in the night for the past God knows how many months. But what did you leave behind to come to the US? And what year was it when you first came?
Yeah, I've been here, I think, just over 14 years now. I mean, I left obviously a family and my friends and all that. But in terms of career, I didn't leave much because I had kind of obviously played in England. Things didn't work out with a bad injury. And I'd moved back to Ireland and I just couldn't settle. There just wasn't much work going. I was going through that awkward phase of kind of the disappointment of not being a professional soccer player, kind of through injury. And yeah, I just knew I needed to leave and try something different. And that kind of led me to just coming to America and taking a chance and trying to build a life. So I left friends and family, but I wouldn't say I left many opportunities. So it was kind of a necessity to leave.
Very modest there when you say I left a little bit of a football thing in England, because isn't it true that you were Man United as a youngster?
Yeah, at Man United. I first went when I was 11, training, and then 11 to 15, I went on all my school holidays, training and trialling. And then, signed full-time at 15 by obviously Sir Alex Ferguson. And I was there for 5 years. So amazing experience on and off the field. And learned so much about football, learned so much about life. But just really struggled with a pelvis injury and had many kind of operations and comebacks and more operations and more comebacks. And, after many, many years, eventually had to retire. But so I was in the mix and, obviously played for my country, U16, and won the European Championship, which was probably kind of the highlight of my career. But other than that, it was pretty much a start-stop kind of a career, but never got going. But some good memories.
Wasn't it in Scotland, the Euros in
98? we were Scotland. So we won at U16 and then Ireland won at U18 the same year. And the U18s won it in Greece. We were in Scotland, but to be honest, it probably helped us, because Scotland is very similar to Ireland, and the weather and the staff and the hotel and the way our group went. We won our group, so we got to stay in the same kind of location for the whole trip, and we got really immersed with the staff and the hotel and felt really at home. So kind of probably played to our advantage, the big countries, Italy and Spain and Portugal, and maybe, the weather didn't suit them and all that. But it was, amazing experience. Brian Kerr, Noel O'Reilly were our coaches. From a playing point of view, we had Liam Miller, obviously sadly passed away from cancer, but he was a great player, played for obviously Celtic, Man United. John O'Shea, who most people will know from playing for Manchester United and having an amazing career with Ireland. Andy Reid. We just had some really good players. And Brian and Noel were the masters of kind of getting the best out of us. And I think we were a good team, but we probably weren't the most talented team in the tournament, but just that kind of team spirit and camaraderie got us over the line. Yeah, good times.
Yeah. So you said then about it being easier for you almost to go to Scotland and play in Scotland and be successful in Scotland. What was it like? How was that transition going from Ireland and over to Manchester? And at first it was maybe a little bit of a drip thing, going for the summer holidays or going whenever you could. But then when you finally get there, how did you adapt to living there full time?
Yeah, the world was different then. It was like moving from Ireland to England was a big deal. Like it seemed like a million miles away, but now the world is a lot smaller. But I'd done all the kind of holidays for 11 to 15. So I was pretty immersed within the club, but it's a different ball game when you arrive day one as a full-time player and you're in the Cliff training ground and you're a youth team changing room, reserve changing room, and then first team. You're all in it together and you're walking by every day. You're walking by your heroes and your idols. And you're really just thrown into a real adult world. And you got to remember, I was 15 years of age. And that's tough. That is tough because you're really a kid, but you're in there with adults. So, but I think after a couple of weeks, you lose the sense that these guys are superstars and you just get on with it because you're determined and focused and trying to make it. But it was a big transition. I definitely got homesick many times. But you just kind of have to make those decisions. How much do you really want to make it? And you got to make the sacrifices along the way. So, but it was tough. It's not easy.
Were you in digs at the time?
Yeah. You go over. We were in digs. Yeah, I was actually in Sale, which was the opposite side to where the Cliff training ground was in Salford, because they were building Carrington at the time. So they were starting to kind of move the young players over that direction. So we had a great house, great digs, and we'd go in every day and obviously over to the Cliff and train. And it was a great experience. But it's a cutthroat industry, and back then it was a tough school. It really was, like physically and mentally. And if I had kids now, I'm not sure whether I'd want them to go through that life. It's tough. Now, it's definitely helped me. Now that I'm older, I've learned a lot about life through playing football and being in those circumstances. But it's tough. It's a real cutthroat industry. You're going into you got to remember, these are your teammates, but you're also competing against them for spots on the team. So it's a weird dynamic, but it's a strange one, but definitely something that helped me later in life.
And you're rubbing shoulders with, say, your heroes and players at that time. Manchester United, as much as I couldn't stand it, were fantastic in the mid-90s. Was there anybody there in particular of the older pros that really put their arm around you a little bit and helped you through? Because you say it is intense, it is cutthroat, and everyone's after each other. But was there ever times where someone got hold of you and said, "Listen, keep your head down, keep going, and you'll get there. You're going to be all right"?
Yeah, I mean, Teddy Sheringham was always very friendly with the young players. Gary Neville was brilliant. Like, he was great. Like, you remember him even negotiating on our behalf to get like bigger win bonuses for the youth team and little things like that, which kind of stick with you. But yeah, most of them were friendly. Later on, I'd actually, at one point, I went on loan to UCD in Ireland because of my injury, and I'd gone back training with the first team in Manchester United, and Roy Keane had been really good that week and looked after me, and I'd randomly bumped into him on a plane, and he'd offered, waited for me on the other end of the plane, offered to bring me to the training ground, offered to drop me back to where I was staying, and just, really looked after me. So he was good in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I suppose everyone's as well is caught up in themselves. Like, soccer players notoriously are selfish and just trying to look after themselves. But yeah, there was definitely some senior pros there to kind of help.
Did you ever have you got any crazy stories from just being around all that? Anything that sticks out that you remember?
I mean, a ton of things. I mean, I remember the first time I went over at 11, I'd done particularly well that week. And on the last day, they'd bring trialists from all over Europe, and the different scouts would come in, and all the scouts would watch all the different players. But on the last day, the scout from Ireland, Joe Corcoran, had brought me into the Cliff training ground, and the boss, Sir Alex Ferguson, had brought me up to his office and kind of said, "Listen, you did really, really well. A lot of good reports. Keep working hard, and we think there's a great chance that you'll get signed." But I remember I've told the story before, but walking into the office, and he kind of asked who I supported, and I was a Liverpool supporter back then, because that's kind of who everyone supported in Ireland, because they were the best team, like, kind of growing up. And he just went underneath his desk and pulled out a machete knife and held it in the air and said, "Who do you support now?" And I said, "Man United." So obviously he was joking, but it was pretty intimidating, and I literally supported him ever since.
It's funny. Is there an incident? I don't know if you want to talk about this one, Kev, but is there an incident with Roy Keane with a sandwich or something?
Yeah, well, we don't. I don't know if it was definitely him. It was either him or David May. But the day I officially signed, I obviously got brought into the first team changing room. My parents came over, and we had a meeting with Sir Alex and Sir Bobby Charlton, signed the contract, and my parents stayed for the game, obviously. But I got brought into the first team changing room after the game, and they used to have steak sandwiches straight after the game for like the protein, And I was just standing there like a 15-year-old, very nervous. And next thing, a sandwich just smacks me on the face. And I literally stood there. I was like frozen. And the sandwich just kind of slowly rolled down my face onto the floor. And I could just see Roy Keane and David May laughing their heads off in the corner. So obviously just a bit of banter from them. But a bit of a strange one. So I think,
like,
I don't know if it was Roy.
To the club.
Yeah, it could have been Roy, or it could have been David May. Was the joker of the pack, but he turned out to be a really good guy, because he was injured a lot, particularly in '99. He was injured in the early stage of that season a lot, him and Teddy Sheringham, and obviously I was injured. So you get to spend a lot of time, because you do treatment together. And David May was really good with the young guys. And I remember, there was one day where he said, "Do you want to go home and see your family?" And I said, "Geez, I'd love to go home." And the youth development officer walked in, and he said, "Right, Kev needs to go home this weekend." And they got me flights and I went home. So like he was good with the young players, but he was definitely the joker at the back, very funny guy.
Yeah. How did being injured, when did that first injury start? Was it around 97, 98?
Yeah, it was about 90. I was probably about, well, I had a few. I had the Osgood-Schlatter's disease in the knees, which wasn't a big issue because that's just growing pains. And then I got something similar in my hips, which they call Buckman's disease. But again, they weren't overly worried because it was just growing pains. But it was when they figured out there was erosion on the pelvis. That was a big issue because you can't replace your pelvis. But I'd say kind of it was probably just over a year into it when they figured out there was some serious issues, and then it kind of became a serious issue, you know. And yeah.
Was it one of those things where, like, how does that affect your confidence? Because I know it's been something that you've gone out on loan, you've gone to other places along the time. Like, what does that do for you mentally, personally?
So it's soul destroying, really, because you're away from home first and foremost, which is hard. You're competing against all these other people to try and get your spot and make it. The pressure of that. You're also you're wearing the Manchester United shirt, regardless if it's youths, reserves, or first team. It's a big kind of responsibility. And if you're not playing, you're sitting in a treatment room, and that's when you have too much time to think. You get frustrated, you get a bit depressed. It's a lonely, lonely place being injured as a professional soccer player, because your identity is as a soccer player, and you need to get out there and play and express yourself. When you don't have that, it becomes difficult. But I think every soccer player will tell you that.
Yeah. So what was the most? I know you moved to a couple. You went to Millwall, didn't you? You went to a couple of other places, but then was your last stop? Was it UCD? Was the last stop? Before you called it?
I done United. I went. The plan was, some doctors said I'd kind of got second opinions away from Man United, and some people thought that if I trained a bit less, basically my muscles developed very quick, my bones didn't grow as quick, and some doctors thought if I trained less with less intensity and stress, that I might grow out of the injury. It might scar up, and I might grow out of it. So the theory was, and I think it was Brian Kerr that suggested it to me, like if I went back and played for UCD, which was a League of Ireland team in the Premier League in Ireland, but they were also attached to the college, University College Dublin. So I could go back there and kind of play at I wouldn't say a lesser level, but it was a lesser level, but like a less intense level. The injury might heal. I could do some education as well, which would be kind of like a backup, because I had these injuries, and United were fine with that. So I basically went on loan there for 2 years. But by the end of that 2 years, I had some issues with the injury, and then ended up having another operation in Ireland. And I came back from that, and I had the option to go back to United at the end of those 2 years. But Millwall had come in for me, and the kind of logic was, well, I'd missed so much playing. To go back to United and try and make it there was going to be very difficult. Where if I went to Millwall and had a good pre-season, it was realistic that I could potentially get in the first team there. Mick McCarthy was the manager of Ireland at the time, but he was the previous Millwall manager, and he was friends with Mark McGee, the Scottish manager, who was Millwall's manager at the time. And there was just an option. I knew if I did pre-season, got into the first team, did well, I might get a chance to get called up for like the senior international team as well. So I ended up going there, and that was just a smarter move. And I had a brilliant pre-season, and I got a contract. And Theo Fadidas, who's on Dragon's Den, I don't know if you remember, he was the owner at the time. And I remember I had such a good first 3 weeks. They made an offer. It was a very good offer. And I was delighted. I was like, right, I'm going to get a good contract, going to start making some money here. I'm going to kick on here. And Theo had been away on holidays, and he came back, and he was like, well, who is this guy that's going to be one of the top earners in the club? Why are we paying him this money? And they kind of explained when he was with United, but he's had some injuries. And he was like, listen, he's not getting that contract until he proves he's fully fit. And it kind of shows the businessman he was. So I had to sign a lesser contract with a clause in it. If I played 10 first team games, then the new contract would kick in. But of course I broke down, way before the 10 games. So I never got that bigger contract. So it was a great business move by him, kicking the teeth for me. But yeah, the injury had come back then. And so it was actually my 21st birthday. And I remember my sister and her friend coming over to see me. And I was told on the Friday that I'd probably never play again. But I kind of put on a brave face for the weekend while they were over. Then I told my family on the Monday or Tuesday. Yeah. And then moved home that Christmas. And that was kind of the end of my career before I made many outrageous comebacks after that. But that was more desperation looking back on it. But that was where my career was finished. and I went home to Ireland, kind of struggled with the whole thing, but started working for Pat Devlin. He was an agent at the time. He had Damien Duff and did the deal from Blackburn to Chelsea. He did commercial stuff with Shay Given. Just through all that, I was dealing with agents all over the world, and there was one agent from Holland that came over, and he thought that I was still young enough and there was still the medicine and sports science was evolving and they might get me back fit. So I ended up going to Belgium and having a crazy operation and spending a year there doing rehab to try and get back again.
What year is this when you're in Belgium?
God, my sense of years is awful, but would have been early 2000s, yeah. So that was a bit, I hadn't played I'd retired for probably 2 years at that stage. So to go back to Belgium, and Gert de Klerk was the doctor's name, crazy name, but he was one of the best doctors in the world. And he'd looked after, Maldini, Emile Impenza, some big names. And if you had an operation with him, you had to go to his sidekick, Levan Mascalk, who was another famous, he was a rehab specialist. So I literally went over, had the operation, came back for a couple of weeks, went back, and then spent a year in Belgium. I wasn't with a club. I funded it all myself, rented a 1-bedroom apartment, got the bus in and out of rehab every day, and all these superstars were in there. And I just got my head down and kind of gave it another chance and got back and came back to Ireland, signed for St. Pat's, who were full-time at the time. Thought, if I do a couple of months here and then go back to England in the new year, that was the plan. And Roy Keane at the time was just became the Sunderland manager. And I thought, well, if I get myself fit with the connection there, I might get a chance. And, I was talking to Dave Bushell, the youth development officer of Manchester United. And he said, Kev, once you get fit, let me know. And he'll talk to Paul Ince and Roy Keane. Ince was at Wolves at the time. But 3 months later, injury back and career over. So
I was going to say, it's like that constant little carrot, isn't it? You know what? I'll just get back, and I know this fella, and he can help me out. Was it just like was it false dawn after false dawn after false dawn, and you've just turned around and gone, sack it? I'm gonna have to go and do something else.
I think when I left Millwall and I was told I'd never play again, that should have been the end. Now, looking back on it, I should never have done Belgium ever. But looking back on it, I don't actually regret that, because it did show a bit of grit and determination to get an operation, fund it yourself, live in Belgium for a year, get up every day, double sessions, rehabilitation. And I got back on the field. Like, I did get back in a professional club, St. Pat's, back home. So, it showed a bit of grit and determination, but ultimately I was never going to get back properly and get back to the level I wanted to get to. The injury was still there. So regrets in that sense, and probably a bit ridiculous that I did it. But now that I'm older, I look back and say, you know what, I did that, and I'm proud that I tried to do that. Once that happened, then that was it. It was definitely over then,
Yeah. So what prompted the move over here to the US?
So after that, I'd gone back to Ireland, and then I knew it was over. And that's when things like I really got kind of down and a bit depressed with everything. You lose your confidence, your identity. You just don't know what, I didn't really have an education. I was doing small bits and pieces for the FAI back home, and I was working with Pat Devlin a bit on the agency side, but I was still pretty young and I didn't really enjoy that. Pat gave me a great opportunity, don't get me wrong, but I didn't really enjoy that industry or understand it at that stage. And I just needed to get out of Ireland. I was just in a rut and I just needed to get out. And sounds very cheesy, but just growing up watching the American movies and the American dream and all that stuff, probably why a lot of us move here. And I had a friend, Cliff Henry, that I used to play with, and he was over here just for 90 days in New York. And I came for his first 2 weeks just on a holiday. I loved it. And I came for his last 2 weeks. And I kind of made a decision then, I love this. I love New York City. And that's when I started kind of networking and working towards seeing if I could get a visa,
Yeah. So what did you do when you first got here? Was it through that?
Yeah, well, I came out, by the time I came for Cliff's last 2 weeks, I'd been in touch with some immigration lawyers, and they had told me that I'd be eligible probably for an O1 visa. And it's a lot of reference-based, kind of prove you have something different to offer in your industry than your average, say, American.
Yeah.
And so I was lucky Alex Ferguson wrote a reference directly to the embassy, which obviously when you have someone of his kind of stature vouching for you, that really helped. And I had some other references. So I got my O1, so I got 3 years. And I came over and I didn't settle in straight away, and I struggled a bit, to be honest, and I couldn't figure it out. And I had bits and pieces of work, and I was basically freelance coaching, really. And bouncing around. But I always said to myself, I remember there was a time when I went home, but I just said to myself, whatever I do here, give it the 3 years. I have a visa for 3 years, and if I hate it, go home at the end of the 3 years. But don't go home after 1 year or 2 years. See it out. And I started the first. I remember that I was down with George Crampton and John O'Rourke down in Pennsylvania, and they kind of gave me a couple of weeks on camps. And I'd good knowledge of the game, obviously, from playing, but I'd no coaching experience. And looking back, God Almighty, I was the worst coach like you'd ever seen. It was embarrassing thinking about it. But that was a great lesson for me, because I remember coming back, and I had the self-awareness to say, God Almighty, you're awful at this. But I knew I could be a good coach because I had the knowledge. So I really worked at it then. I said, I need to get badges, and I need to research, and I need to watch sessions, and I need to practice. And best way to become a good coach really is to get out there and practice and try things. And so I was horrendous at the start, but I became a decent coach, and I did the whole freelance thing. And then I got a big opportunity with Lansdowne, who are one of the best kind of amateur teams in America. And they gave me a chance to manage them. And I was probably only like 27 at the time. And I got I was really enthusiastic, and I really put my heart and soul into that. And we did really well. We had a great run. And that massively gave me the confidence then to know that I could kind of offer something in the game. And that's when I kind of got my second 01 and really kind of tried to kick on then.
That's class. What sorts of things at the beginning are you thinking to yourself, oh, what am I doing here? Outside of the coaching, obviously you get there and you're up the wall with the coaching, but what sorts of things from just day-to-day American life?
Yeah, well, I remember coming over. I never forget the first time when I moved over here, I was so nervous and stressed about it. I remember getting a taxi, and I didn't know anyone because my friend had gone home, but he had linked me in with friends of his, 2 girls that had an apartment in Queens. And he said, Kev, they have a room to rent. You're better off renting off them. At least you know someone. So I remember getting a taxi from JFK, and I was so nervous and anxious. Like, this was it. I wasn't coming for 2 weeks. I was coming for 3 years. And I remember even hadn't taxi pulled over. I had to get sick and everything. I just worked myself up. But those 2 girls, Charlene and Denise, were great to me because they they didn't care that I used to play football or anything. They were just good people. And at least I knew people in New York. So I stayed with them for a while. But just figuring out New York. It's a crazy city, and I knew nothing about it. And I didn't make big money from playing. So I wasn't coming over here with like loads of money. I was like everyone else, had to work and had to make money to try and pay my bills and all that stuff. So I had to figure it out. But no, I fell in with a great group of friends, and who I'm still friends with today. I was very lucky in that sense. And again, none of them were football people. They were all bartenders at the time, and now a lot of them own bars in the city and have done really well. But they were great to me, just kind of integrating me into New York and helping me see the funnier side of life. Because I was very intense I'm still intense at times, but I was very intense when I first came over, and I found it hard to relax and enjoy myself. But as time went on, I got to meet good people that kind of brought me with them, and I started to enjoy it and see the funny side of life a bit more. So,
obviously, you're at the clubs you've been at, or particularly Man United, and it is day to day and it is serious and everything else. But then, did you find over here? Because I certainly remember when I first came over in 03, everyone just is happy to be away from home, and they're just enjoying the fact that you're in New York, and all sorts of mad stuff happens, doesn't it, when you first come here, and you're thinking, this is no way this is going to happen in the UK or Ireland. Was there anything you come across early on where you're like, this is never happening to me back home?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a big part of it is obviously in New York City, the social scene. I wasn't a drinker, like, I'd maybe have a handful of drinks before I'd come over, like, but you come over here and there is obviously a party scene here, which can be good and bad. But I remember, as I said, I fell in with a good crew, and going out and having a few drinks was good for me because it helped me meet people and relax and all that. But I remember one time I nearly went home. I remember going out with a couple of my friends, Cahill and a few others, and still friends with them today, great people, but they were used to drinking. But I remember having a way too much drink and getting way too drunk. I remember being in an absolute heap the next day and just thinking, what am I doing with my life? And looking at Aer Lingus flights to go home and all this, being in the horrors. But you kind of go through all that. But it was looking back, it was good just to meet those people and get out and experience it. But yeah, mad stuff. I mean, I've been here 14 years, and I work hard. We all work hard, but it seems like it's been 14 years of a vacation, really. Like it's such a fun place, and like people in Ireland don't even realise, like that. It's a simple thing for me, but I used to hate Sunday nights in Ireland, even as a kid, because you'd school the next day, or when I was back after football, on Monday tomorrow was an awful day. I've never once had that feeling in New York City. There's like anything can happen on any given day, and that energy and excitement is what keeps me going. I love that. So that's a little barometer for me. When on a Sunday night, I don't have that awful feeling I used to have back home.
I still get the Sunday scaries a little bit, but I'm on a bit more of a schedule. But still, you're right. I mean, I'll be 22 years this time round, and it's like you say, you only remember the fun stuff that's happened a lot of the time. So go back to the football. What ways have you found the football culture different in the US, or call it unique in the US compared to Ireland and the UK?
I mean, one of the biggest things that it's not just here now, but from a development point of view, the lack of street soccer. I mean, we all talk about that. I mean, we grew up playing on the street. Even my friends who, at home, who I wouldn't consider good footballers, were half decent because they just played growing up on the street, And the kids here in all these youth clubs, and there's some great youth clubs and great coaches and philosophies and all that, but they're only really playing within those 2 or 3 days a week of training. So from a development point of view, that street soccer doesn't exist. I don't think it exists as much back home either. But here's different. I mean, the pay-to-play model is it's great. It creates a career for people like us. It's so bizarre. Growing up, we paid back then it would have been £1 a week subs to pay the ref or to wash the jerseys. And if you didn't have it, it was no issue. Now people are paying like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. Like it's crazy. But I think it's developed massively. I mean, obviously participation has been there for years and years and years, and that's great. But I think a lot of these youth clubs are getting very sophisticated with bringing in like real quality technical directors and executive directors. And some of these clubs have full offices with staff and marketing people, and it's great. It's really, really come on. In terms of producing, like they produce a lot of great players. I mean, I scouted over here for Manchester United for a while in the tri-state area, and I spotted an 11-year-old in New Jersey that turned out to be Tyler Adams, and Jack McGlynn I spotted. He was, I think, 11 as well at the time, maybe 10. He was playing for Gotchi out in Queens, and he was a number 10. He was brilliant, and he scored a great goal last week for the American national team, 30 yards, top corner. Mario Rotacchio, he was Met Oval, he was Gotchi, ended up signing for Liverpool. Matt Miazga was at Red Bulls at the time, and I recommended him to United. He went to Chelsea, and there was just Conor McGlynn, who's Jack's brother, who just signed for Westchester Soccer Club that I'm involved in, so we were delighted to sign him. But there was so much talent back then, and then you look at Tyler, and you look at all these McKenzie and all these great players, so the talent is getting better and better. But obviously with all the other sports in America, a lot of great athletes are going to other sports, and that's an issue for soccer.
Yeah, definitely is. But like you said, I see it growing a little bit, and it's nice to see players getting a little bit of a chance as well in Europe, because you can obviously tells you that it's getting a little bit better. So to come away from footy then a little bit, you've been involved in a few different ventures, right, along the way, not just on the field. And you mentioned the new role that you've got now. We'll get to that in a couple of questions. But what inspired you to get involved in other things, whether it's different opportunities in different realms or just different facets of football while you were here, or since you've been here?
I did the coaching thing, which was just, honestly, I started coaching because that was kind of the natural progression. You're a player, what are you going to do? Well, let's try and coach. And as I said, I was awful, and then I became decent. I wouldn't say great. I was a decent manager. I liked recruitment, and I liked man management. I never really loved doing sessions, if I'm being honest. So yeah, I did the whole Lansdowne and the New York Shamrocks, and had my supplemental academy, and then I became technical director of a club up in Rockland, and I did all that, and I just knew it wasn't what I really wanted to do. I kind of fell out of love with it, and although it was great and I did well, and it was a great kind of career path for me, I didn't want to be a professional coach, and I didn't really want to be a technical director, but I just kind of I'd learned that I really had enjoyed the business side of things, and I was half decent at it. And I suppose the first kind of thing that happened that kind of sent me on that pathway was David Villa. So David Villa approached me with Victor Onate, who's his agent, absolute gentleman, and they knew me through someone, and they were looking. David had just signed for NYCFC, and they had many businesses within their DV7 company, and they were looking to penetrate the American market, and they came to me and asked for help, and I became a consultant for them and helped them on many things, commercial deals, their academy, apparel stuff, and really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed that. David Villa was an absolute gentleman and his agent was brilliant. And that got me thinking, well, there's a world outside of being on the field. And I have value potentially because, I've always been I'm not great at many things, but I'm a good networker and I know how to nurture relationships. And I was able to connect people with the right people and so on. So that went really well. And that kind of started kind of the business side of things. And then kind of pandemic hit and it kind of forced, obviously, us all to get off the field for a while. And as I was kind of sitting there thinking, well, what am I going to do here? We got to kind of ride the storm. I just realized this is my chance to get out of the whole on-field stuff. And I just made a pact with myself that I was going to go full tilt into the business side of things. And then Andreas Iniesta approached me and he had a company called NSN. It was so bizarre because all the Spanish I could see, all the Spanish seemed to keep coming to me and I can't speak a word of Spanish and I can barely speak English. So, but I wasn't going to say no. So his company was very impressive and they did a million different things. They had a soccer cleat company. They did content creation. They had a clothing line. They just did a ton of different things. So I headed up North America for them and, went really well for a period and many different opportunities for their company. And then Ike Casilla, same thing. He had a company, 380 AMK, and they were looking to do stuff over here. And they've just landed now with an office in LA. And that kind of just opened it up. And then Leinster Rugby came and they wanted to do stuff over here. And kind of, for whatever reason, my name was the name that, kept going around. Well, if you want to get into America or New York, talk to kind of Kevin Grogan. And Niall Quinn, then he had a company, Team Taka, and he said my name kept coming up and he'd known of me when I was playing. And it all just kind of started to snowball. I think once you get a few of them opportunities and you deliver and you show that you can deliver for them and that you're a good person, the next one comes and the next one comes. And slowly but surely it kind of all just built up. And I'm having a decent run. As I always say, I know how to invoice people, so I'm good at that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. People might say that about me. But what if, like, just, and without sounding nosy or condescending, like you mentioned how you had no education coming out of football. Where do you get that knowledge from to enable people like the names that you've just mentioned to just pop up? Is it from working in Dublin with agents and everything else and just picking up little things from everywhere? Is that pretty much what it was?
I think it is. I think it's a bit of everything. Like, and as I said, I'm bad at a lot of things, but I'm good at a few things. I think the things I'm good at, like, I have a good eye for business, but I think a big part of it is networking and knowing how to treat people, and that comes from your upbringing, really, doesn't it? My mom always kind of taught us the value of please and thank yous, and my dad was an old school Dublin man, electrician, and when you talk about work ethic, that's what he did. He got up every day and went to a factory and worked. And, that rubs off on you. So my work ethic comes from my mom and dad, and my, knowing how to deal with people and being polite, comes from them as well, particularly my mom. So you learn you hope that you're a good person and you hope that rubs off on people and people recognize that. And then, when I realized early on in New York that it's a fantastic city to network. Like, there's a lot of people here at a high level of business that will give you time. And if you can go and meet those people and you can learn from them, but you can, it can't just be one-way traffic. Like, it has to be give and take as well. And, well, thanks for your time. And I've learned a lot. How can I help you? And so on. And you just nurture those relationships over time. They have to be natural. You can't just be going in looking for stuff all the time. And then having the understanding that some of these guys, if someone maybe likes you as a person, that they can become your mentors as well. And I mean, I think you've met Mike and Brendan Moylan from soccer.com, and that's a big part of my life and what I do. And I've been blessed to meet those two guys because, one, they're super smart, they're brilliant business people, and they've been very generous to me in terms of bringing me to meetings all over the world, really, and letting me learn and educate myself. But they're just good human beings, and they've built this amazing company, but they give so much back to people, and they're very generous with their time. So, like, people like that, I've understood that, you can learn a lot from these people, and they've become great friends of mine. So I think it's a combination. I think, I like a negotiation. I feel comfortable in that world, and I love the gamesmanship involved in that. And I've always thought that in most deals, you don't need to be aggressive. I think there's enough for everyone. And if you can kind of go into deals and make something work where everyone wins, you have a chance of getting a deal done, like, you know, as long as whatever you're selling or your product is good and you can stand behind it. So yeah, I think it's something that just kind of came natural, but I think your upbringing has a lot to do with it and who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, no, true. So I have to get to this one. So with all these connections and everyone you have, and you're dealing with everyone in sports, how is it you get involved with managing performers in New York? In specific, I mean, you know which one I'm on about as well.
Yeah, Elvis, aka Lamar. Lamar's a character. So, how Lamar came about is, I mean, it's Elvis and a boxer, Emmett Brennan, who's actually I've been helping for a couple of years now, and he's got his big break now. He's fighting in the Garden on March 16, and comedians, Al Porter, who's a very big comedian back home in Ireland and England. But the Elvis one was funny because I'm a massive Elvis fan. I've been to Graceland 3 or 4 times. I love, like, his private jets are there, all his classic cars are there. I love classic cars. You see his costumes, you see everything. And I grew up listening to all my dad's LPs, and that's really why, you know, I started liking Elvis and other singers from around then. But yeah, I just went to my friend initially who owns Haswell Greens, and I was just like, we've got to get Elvis in here. Let me find you Elvis. And he was kind of reluctant, but then the Elvis movie came out and it was such a big hit. He was like, get us an Elvis. So I went and tried to find the best Elvis I could find, and we got Lamar, who's brilliant, and I got him a contract. He's played once a month, every Sunday, last Sunday of every month for I think the last 2 years now. And he's kind of a staple of the bar. And we even got him up to the Seacoast Summit last year, I think, for Ash Quinn's birthday. So
yeah, that was a funny one. Is it just a case of, the question I had down was like, what skills from your football background help you in this role? I'm presuming it's just like what you've just said there about just being courteous and nice and having the time for people and being a bit relentless.
You know what? A lot of it starts with goodwill. I mean, just understanding that, you know, we should all try and help other people, you know, and that's a great thing to do. And it also makes us feel good about ourselves. You know, we do it for selfish reasons as well, but helping people is something that makes me feel good about myself, but it's a good thing to do. So, you know, when Al Porter or when Emmett Brennan was coming over to Boxer, and or when a lot of people ring me in business, and, you know, a lot of people ask for help or are looking for work or whatever, and there's a lot of stuff you try and do just to help people. There's nothing in return, but you get it back in karma in different ways, and people help me. So it's important that we give back and all that. But yeah, a lot of it is just helping people, and then sometimes that turns into business as well, which is great. Like, you know, but you've got to be willing to get out there and help people where you genuinely aren't looking for anything back. And with a lot of these guys, Emmett and Al Porter and you know, Sharon Ward, the singer, and, you know, Wycliffe John and all these people, like, yeah, it just starts from try and start from a good place, and just, if nothing else, you help someone, and that's a good thing to do. And if it comes back as business, brilliant. Like,
yeah, that's class. That's really funny. The Elvis is excellent. He's excellent, isn't he?
Well, there was mixed reviews up in Seacoast. I think half the room thought it was the best thing ever, and the other half the room didn't know what was going on. But
the most important thing is, did the people who mattered enjoy it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it was Ash Quinn, Niall Quinn's daughter's birthday there. They own, obviously, Team Taka, the podcast show, and Jill, Niall's wife, was there. So they loved it, and I think Paul Willis loved it, and our good friend Andy Roderick and all them boys enjoyed it.
Mate, I was all over it. It was brilliant.
Yeah,
you've recently taken on another role now within footy. What drew you to that? I know you live up that way. I know you live up Westchester way, but what drew you to the role, and what are you looking forward to from another challenge in football?
Was Westchester Soccer Club. I mean, it's funny because there's Westchester Flames up here. There's FC Westchester, so everyone gets confused with the names. But yeah, do you know what happened? I was a finance group. I know a lot of investors, and one group had approached me about buying a professional club, and I was kind of going to help head it up from a soccer side point of view. We looked at Las Vegas Lights, which was a really interesting one, fastest growing city in America. There was no MLS franchise or USL franchise. Well, there was a USL franchise there that was for sale. You know, there was lots that could be done there. But realistically, you know, for me, if I'm heading up a fund, I'd have to really go to the area where the club is and, you know, protect the investment, you know. So, and I didn't want to move to Vegas. So I said,
you could have took Lamar with you.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Would have been perfect for him. So yeah, it wasn't probably the right one for me. And I kind of told that to the group, and then we looked at yeah, we looked at Dundalk as well. Dundalk was for sale a couple of times, an amazing club in Ireland, and they played in Europe, a few years ago against Arsenal and all that. But again, didn't want to move back to Ireland and didn't want to, be a part of an investment group that was going to buy a club, walk onto a pitch with the flag on day one, and then get back in the plane and come back to America.
Mm.
It was something I was looking at, but the right kind of opportunity didn't come. And then, yeah, just randomly a deck arrived on my desk one day for a new franchise in Westchester, and I hadn't even heard about it. And I said, well, that's interesting. Then I met the main owner, Mitch, and yeah, we just looked at could there be kind of collaboration, whether it's on the investment side or advisory side. And yeah, so I kind of trashed out a deal and became a small owner, and I'm now advising in the background. It's been a whirlwind. It's been great, and we brought in a great head coach, Dave Carton. We have obviously Simon Baines done a phenomenal job on the sporting director side. We've Sarah Whalen, who won the World Cup with America. She's involved. Danny Decker, obviously Mitch is the main owner. Tyrod Tyler from the New York Jets is a part owner, and there's just some really, really solid people behind it. And there's no other franchise in sport in Westchester. It's a good area. There's a lot of kids playing soccer here. There could be a great fan base. As Sarah Whalen said, we've kind of started something from nothing, which is fun. So listen, by no means am I the brains behind this, but I'm in the background advising when needed. And we've built a good staff and we've built a squad. And pre-season starts on Monday. But I'm just in the background advising on the kind of technical side and also a bit on the business side. And I brought a few investors to the table, and yeah, it's fun. It's a fun project, and it's on my doorstep.
That's nice, mate. I've seen a couple of the names coming through the door playing wise, and I'm hoping it's going to work out for you. When's the first game?
So the first game is March 8th away in Greenville, and then we've 4 games on the bounce away, and then we have our first home game in April. But yeah, it's been good. Dave Carton is, he's an Irish guy, but he was with Charlotte and the Pendles. He's a big pickup as a coach. He's young, dynamic, load of experience, and this is kind of his first head coach job, and he's got that hunger and desire. And as I said, Simon and Sarah, they've just done a great job. So yeah, I'm just there as a support system and, small owner. And obviously I've got a lot going on, and soccer.com is kind of one of my priorities as well. So been focusing on that. And the team TACA stuff with Niall and Ashley. Yeah, I'm kept busy, but it's been good,
No, that's class, mate. It's really good, and it's obviously, listen, your success speaks for itself, doesn't it? Really, when you still, people are still picking up the phone. It's a good thing. Take the football out of it. I know that the promising career and the injuries, but what has living in the US done for you and afforded you to come across if you hadn't have? Stayed at home?
The simple answer is it gave me a chance. That's all we ask for, is a chance in life. And I mean, I got given a chance, obviously, to be a footballer, but it didn't work out. But I just felt. And I don't think it's an Ireland thing, but it was just my circumstance. I never really, when I went back, there just wasn't many chances for it. But America has given me a chance to have a life, and it's given me plenty of work. It's given me a ton of friends, and it's just given me opportunities. And, as you know, just every day you wake up here, like the world literally is your oyster. There's so many opportunities, and I love that. I love the excitement of getting up on any given day, and you just don't know what could happen or who you could meet. And I've met some of the most amazing people in America. I really have, all over America. And some very famous people, which is nice, but some other people that, would be considered ordinary people, but are just the most amazing people you'll ever meet. And they're so friendly. And one thing I always say is, like, the first year I was here by myself, and I couldn't believe, but 4 random families asked me to Thanksgiving dinner. And I just couldn't believe that would never happen kind of back home, really, although we're friendly in Ireland. But it's just, I couldn't believe that. And it's just, listen, the world's a crazy place, and America's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't get involved in all the politics and all that stuff. But I think at the heart of it, there's still amazing people in this country, and I think the American dream definitely still exists. It's maybe a different form, and maybe it's harder to get it. But for me, I get up every day, I have a ton of work, I've got great friends, I live in a nice area, and I feel blessed every day, genuinely.
That's class, mate. Do you still keep in contact with anyone from your time in football?
Yeah.
And have they helped you along the way?
Yeah, at the start I didn't. I didn't want to talk to anyone, to be honest, because you kind of just, you just want to get away from it. But yeah, like obviously on a WhatsApp group with John O'Shea and Andy Reid and those kind of guys. Over the years, kind of reconnected with people, which has been good. And it's only just at the convention in Chicago I bumped into Paul McGuinness, who was an old coach of mine at Man United, and that was amazing. Like, just to kind of see him and catch up. And as time has gone on, I think, a big part, like people like Alex Ferguson and many others writing references for me to get over here and get my visa was a massive help. And that's been good. So yes, I've kept in touch, but initially I didn't want to talk to anyone in soccer, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't blame you. Is there anything from your time before you got to the US that you incorporate into daily life now? I suppose out with just the values from your family. Is there anything you picked up along the way that you use now?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of all the stuff kind of touched on. It's just that the value of working hard and treating people the right way, and they're just basic things. But you'd be amazed how many people in the world that don't know how to say please and thank you, and they don't know the value of work ethic and all those basic things. Where I think people, from my generation and other generations, that was just kind of given for us. Like, that was just kind of embedded in us. And I think, so bringing that into everything I do, and just to try and be humble about things, and not get carried away when you have a few successes, and, not to get too down when things don't go the right way. I think, I look at it now and say, like, I've so many great friends in America that would have my back. And if I lost everything tomorrow, career wise, I could pick up the phone and get a job somewhere straight away in whatever industry. And I think that's, that's a very comforting thing to kind of, to be able to be attached for. But yeah, just growing up in Ireland, and obviously, listen, if you get to a certain level of football, you have something in you. You definitely have to have a grit and a determination. So, I don't know if you're born with that, or maybe you are born with it, and a good coach or mentor brings it out in you. But you definitely have to have something if you play, in England at a level, and it's just bringing all that in and having that kind of grit and determination in life and in business as well.
What advice would you give to young players in the US now who are facing similar challenges to what you've experienced as your career with injuries? Take the lads at Westchester, for example, when they get going. What would you pass on to them?
I mean, it's a tough one because, for example, we had a young player that we liked and we were going to sign, but he had an offer to go to a full ride in a very good D1 college. And ultimately, and I knew the parents, knew the player, the player was desperate to come and not go to college. But for me, it's like, to go to college, get an education and play football, like, that is the pathway, in my opinion. Like, if I had kids or whatever, like, that's the pathway I'd want them to go. But obviously then the flip side of that is, if you want to be a top professional, like on the world stage, the sooner you get into full-time football, the better. And people would argue, well, if you're not in full-time football at 16 and you wait till you're 22, it's going to be too late. It's not impossible. But yeah, I just think education is important. Not the most important thing. Like, plenty of us who haven't got it have gone on and done well, but there's something nice to be able to say that you have a degree. And I think, talked to Niall Quinn about this before, and he kind of agreed. We went around to Duke University and UNC and got shown around, and just like, it's just unbelievable, the magnitude of these universities, and they've 6 or 7 restaurants, and the sports attached to them, and the degrees, and like, what a great lifestyle to get a degree, to experience the college life, and come out then, as a 22-year-old, as a young adult, and kind of attack the world that way. So I'd probably advise young soccer players that, go and enjoy it, but, don't lose sight of the education. You can do both. You can have the best of both worlds. And if you're really good enough at 22, you can still do it. Just becomes a bit harder, or if you are going to go early and at 16 or whatever, just have a backup plan as well. And the biggest thing, and it's the most simple thing ever, as one thing, my only real regret was that I didn't enjoy it enough when I was playing. It was hard to enjoy it when you're injured so much. Winning the European Championships was unbelievable, but I look back, I did not enjoy that enough because I was so intense and focused on trying to make it. And you just get so consumed by it that, like, going into Manchester United and pulling on the training kit every day and pulling on the United jersey on the weekend for, like, the youth team, like what a great honor. But you kind of lose track of, how lucky you are. So that's a regret of mine. So I always, it's such a simple bit of advice, but just, you have to enjoy your life. You really have to. And whatever you do, and if you're playing football, just make sure you enjoy. And if you enjoy it, force yourself to enjoy it. You'll end up playing better as well.
Do you find yourself doing that more now as an older person?
I enjoy myself too much now. I hang out with Andy and Mike Moylan too much, but yeah, it's just you gotta work hard and play hard a bit as well, but you gotta enjoy it. You know, what is it? A day without laughter is a day wasted, which is a Charlie Chaplin quote that I love, and it's so true. You gotta laugh. Life is hard, like for all of us, and a lot of things happen, and you know, there's good times and bad times, but you got to try and see the good side and the funny side of it. You got to enjoy yourself. And listen, maybe we enjoy ourselves too much sometimes, but you're better off doing it that way than the other way around, because it's unhealthy to be too intense, and it's unhealthy not to smile and not to laugh. So, yeah.
Yeah, true. So last one, what does the future hold for Kevin Grogan?
Yeah. Well, short term, more the same. Yeah, more the same. You know, we've got in kind of the industry we're in, we have a runway with the World Cup coming. And I just think, just kind of keep chipping along what I'm doing and keep trying to learn and figure things out on the business side and developing that side of things. And just try to add value to everything I'm involved in and make sure I'm getting up every day and working hard for people who have given me an opportunity and see what happens. And just trying to do the right thing and be a good person and appreciate the people that have helped me. So just more the same.
Nice one, Kev. Listen, from a personal perspective, I appreciate you giving me a little bit of time today and giving me the insight and giving everyone the insight that you've given us as well. A couple of good little topics there, mate. So I really do appreciate it. So thanks.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, Gary.
We might just save that down first, though. Just before you go, I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you, mate. I'll try and rattle through these.
Yeah, no.
So, best place you've been to in America?
Love Nashville. Love the country music, love the bars, love everything about it, love the classic car, a lot of showrooms there.
Yeah, that might be the correct answer. Who's playing you in a movie?
Oh, God, that's Quasimodo.
Are you breakfast, lunch or dinner?
Dinner.
Even in Ireland?
Yeah, love my dinner. I'm a late night eater. I can fast all day and then go for it at night, you know.
Fair enough. All right, best player you've played or trained with?
Paul Scholes, I'd say. Yeah, Paul Scholes was just a different level, and played some training games with him, and just amazing.
Yeah. What's one thing you do now on a regular basis that you would never have seen yourself doing before you moved to the US?
On a daily basis. I mean, I try and do a bit of yoga, and I'm horrendous at it, but my good friend Julie put me in touch with yoga, and maybe I do a bit of yoga, but I wouldn't say every day. But I mean, I never drank coffee before I came to America, and now every morning I love my coffee. I love my morning coffee to get my day started. So,
have you ever stolen anything?
No, can't remember stealing anything. No, no, not that I can remember, or I'm going to say.
Such a good lad, yeah, correctly, yeah. What's one irrational fear you have?
Irrational fear. I'm not great with heights. I hate small space. I hate lifts and small spaces and all that. But I don't know if that's irrational. But I'm not sure.
What Elvis song are you singing on a karaoke?
Oh, a good one. Oh, that's a tough one. I love his version of My Way. He did the Frank Sinatra My Way. He did a great version of that. Unchanged Melody did a great version of that. But I suppose one of the iconic ones, Suspicious Minds or Jailhouse Rock.
That's fair. What's one Olympic sport that you seriously think you could do?
Power walking. I'm a great power walker.
Have you got the form down, yeah?
I've got the form down, yeah.
Yeah. All right, last thing. What's one thing from home that would definitely work in America?
Well, the drinking, obviously, that works both sides. One thing at home that would work in America? Oh, God, that's a tough one. I'm not sure, really. Maybe that, the day drinking on Sundays, watching the games, but
That'll be about it. All right. Listen, mate, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been
my
class,
pleasure.
And it's great talking to you. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you or someone you know has a story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us via our socials or visit www.crossingthepondpodcast.com to get in touch. Please be sure to subscribe, like, or leave a comment if you can. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Across Pond Podcasting.